Welcome back, fellow travelers. This is episode 27, and in this episode, we're meeting up with our friends at It's a Family Thing, two moms traveling the world with their 3-year-old boy. C is with us, and she'll be sharing their journey of becoming digital nomads. Stay tuned to find out how and why becoming location independent can lead to the best travel opportunities without breaking the bank. Welcome to Streets and Eats, the travel and food podcast dedicated to taking our listeners to the sights, sounds, and flavors of fascinating places near and far, both on and off the beaten path. We're Jim and Corinne Vale, and we've been traveling internationally and domestically together for decades, visiting more than 90 countries in all 50 states in the USA. We'll share all of the local knowledge and food expertise we've gathered through years of living as expats in Asia and Europe, as well as traveling with families spanning multiple generations around the world. Join us each week for a new adventure.
See, it's so wonderful to have you on. Can you tell us a little bit about how you guys got started traveling? And it sounds like on your blog that there was an epiphany moment. I'd love to hear about that.
So after my wife and I got married in December 2017, we went on like a honeymoon/birthday trip because it just happened to fall around her birthday. And we went to Thailand and Japan. And I got these amazing it was $500 round trip on ANA Airlines.
Wow.
And I was just like, we can't pass this up. Let's do it. Let's go. And it was the first time either one of us had traveled internationally. And we just fell in love. It was a phenomenal trip. A lot of things went wrong, but the highlights of our trip, and I think the moment we realized, I think we should do this more often. We can really do this. As we were walking, and we stayed at an Airbnb in a regular neighborhood with locals, and we were walking around, and everyone was just so happy with what they had, and it wasn't a lot, it wasn't extravagant. They were just so happy, and we were looking around like, man, it's nice to be kind of free of everything, to not have to constantly worry about a mortgage or trying to attain this and trying to attain that. And we love that feeling. It felt good. So we were talking about it, and right before we left for the trip, we were planning on having a baby. So we knew that was already going to happen eventually. So we were just like, I think we can do this. And that was the first kind of light bulb in our mind. And I'm obsessive. So we got home from Japan, and I just was Googling away like gap years, family gap years, traveling with a baby. And I just went down this rabbit hole for months.
So at that point, you were already thinking like full-time travel, I guess.
Yes.
Nice.
I was thinking it, but I'd never heard of it.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, we travel a lot too, but we've never been full-timers per se.
Mm-hmm.
We've worked overseas a lot. So that's how we've done a lot of our travel. So Japan and Thailand were your first overseas locations. What were your impressions of? We've lived in Japan for over 5 years, and we've both been to Thailand, although not together. So what was your like aha moments when you were traveling in these foreign countries where both of the places the script is different? I mean, it's not like you could even they do have Romaji in Japan quite a bit. I don't remember Thailand. I think as much. They had some English as well on the signs, but getting around and that feeling of not speaking English, not having people who might speak English. How did you get over that? Because I think that's like the major stumbling block for people, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Especially places where it's not letter based, it's symbol based. And we're just like, what? I can't even pretend to kind of sort of know what I'm doing. But we did a lot of walking. My wife, she just reminded me this the other day because we took a Grab, which is like Uber or Didi. Mm-hmm. So we took a Grab, and I didn't want to pay for a Grab back to our Airbnb. So we walked, and it ended up being a 4-mile walk, and we didn't even realize it. We were just going through, I figured, because the kilometers, and I'm just, we're so terrible at the trying to do the conversions, the metric system. We were just so bad. But I thought those were our best moments because we got to really see the country that aren't the tourist spots. We got to see the neighborhoods and we got to run into kids and we just got to see so much getting lost. I think sometimes that's the best thing that can happen to you is when you get lost and you kind of just see what's around you.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but when you get lost like that, it's more like five senses. I mean, I think everything is heightened, right? You see everything and you're feeling it and you hear these sounds and smells.
You're in the moment.
You are so in the moment. I think it's such a different feeling than when you just go through life on your normal routine job, whatever it is.
You get tunnel vision.
So,
right.
But Japan wasn't too bad. We were able to navigate. We didn't get lost in Japan, which I'm surprised because we get lost everywhere all the time. But we didn't get lost in Japan because their public transportation is just so easy. Yeah. It's so easy to figure out, and they have everything listed for you, and they tell you, and everyone's kind of helpful a little bit. So surprisingly, we didn't get lost in Japan. But Thailand, we were just.
In Japan, they spent quite a bit of effort socially and through government programs and everything, preparing for the Olympics and making sure that exactly that when visitors came, they could get around easily and people would help them. So yeah, Japan we really find is a really easy place where
to start traveling.
Unexpectedly easy, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so easy to just hop on the train or the subway or the public transportation was so easy. I don't even think we got in a car ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you don't need to in Japan.
No.
You definitely don't need to. Yeah.
So in both of these places, did you just do capital cities or did you get out into the country more?
A little bit. When we went to Bangkok, we went to a real elephant sanctuary where you learn a lot more about the animals they rescue, and you don't do any writing. You do a little bit of interaction, like you feed them, things like that, but you, none of those pictures on top of them or nothing like that. So we spent some time out there, which my wife loves. She's obsessed with elephants. She feels like it's her spirit animal. So she was just blown away by that. She talks about it constantly and wants to go back to volunteer. So we're hoping we can do that.
How long were you there?
In the coming years. We were in Thailand, I think a week and a half, maybe. Because we first went to it was a weird route. So we first went to Bangkok and we left Bangkok. We went to Phuket, which was we went to the Phi Islands before they closed it to tourism, which was beautiful. It was just so beautiful. It was just gorgeous. We stopped in Malaysia. We had to stop over in Malaysia and got completely lost. And then we made our way to Tokyo.
Wow.
Yeah, and Kuala Lumpur. No, they don't say there's two airports. So you get off and you leave one airport and you have to go to another airport. We had no clue. We're looking for our gate and it doesn't exist because we're at the wrong airport.
Oh, I hate that when that happens. And when you're traveling to a country for the first time, I mean, you just don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that they would be changing airports on you. That's happened to me a couple of times too.
Going to this,
it's a little disconcerting to say the least.
One airport, yeah,
that's right. But like you said, everything always works out, so that's okay. So you get back to the States, and then you decide, like you said, you obsess and you go on this idea that you're going to travel for the long, long time. So then do you take off again, or you have your baby and then you plan on taking off?
Well,
I mean, I know that 2020 is coming, so I know that through a wrench in your plans.
It was a busy time. We got back. We were actually in the process of, before we got married, I had bought a house. So we were fixing up the house. We were going to sell the house. And we got back, I think, when did we get back? March 11th, I think. I went to the doctor. We had the whole process to get pregnant. I was pregnant. We knew I was pregnant by March 30th.
Wow, that was quick.
So
wow,
things moved quickly. Things moved very quickly. So we spent that entire time. We didn't travel anymore. We spent that entire time working on the house. So taking down popcorn ceilings, replacing floors. And I had just gotten out the Army. So there's that piece of it. So it's a lot of moving pieces going on. We always like to make our life difficult and do a lot of things at once. So while pregnant, we're working on the house. Right. We're getting ready to, try to sell that. And I'm leaving the Army. I was in the reserves at the time. I was leaving the Army and that whole rigmarole, going through that process. And we're saving. We cut our cost. We decided we weren't going to buy a second car. So we had one car. And we were just really focused on, if we're going to do this, at first it was a year. We're going to take a year. We're going to travel. And I figured it would be 2024. Let's do it in 2024 is the original idea. Oh. And the more I started looking into it, the more I started learning. I was just like, maybe we could do it a little sooner. So fast forward to November, and our son is born a month early. Our son is born. I go into labor a month early. We close on our house while I'm in labor. Like someone buys our house while we're in labor. I'm in labor. We don't have anywhere to move to because I thought we had time. And we sold the house. I'm just like, damn it, we're about to be homeless with 2 dogs and a baby that showed up a month early. And we're just like, what are we going to do? So,
oh my.
We sold a lot of our stuff and we moved into a small condo. And from that point, we decided, you know what? 2020, we're doing it. We're going to save money. We are going to, once we have 50,000, we had the money from the sale of the house, which was a nice profit. Once we had $65,000, we are going to just do this. And to play it back is just so mind-boggling because now we think about it like, wow, what were we thinking? We moved into this condo. We have our dogs, which we eventually had to give up because once we had the baby, they were nipping at the baby and it just didn't go well, which was heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. But that's when we really started to pick up travel. So our son had his passport by the time he was 2 months. We were in Beijing by the time he was 4 months. We left Beijing. We went to Hawaii. We went to Mexico. We flew him all over the country. By the time he was 1, he had been on 50 flights.
Wow.
Wow.
And
that's
you write on your website, that he's just took to flying naturally. He's never cried.
Yes. It was amazing. So surprising. We were shocked. The first time he ever flew he was 8 weeks old and we had a family emergency. We had to fly from California to Colorado and nothing. It went great. And we were just like, maybe we can do this. And then his second flight after that whole thing, we went to Beijing. So that's a big jump. Yeah. I found tickets for $350 and I was just like, wow, you can't beat that from San Diego. So let's go to Beijing.
Okay, you got to share. What is your secret? $500 to Thailand and $300 to Beijing. I don't think I've ever found those great tickets.
Yeah, so Scotch Cheap Flights, I use that constantly. I have the premium membership. And I think it's like Scott.
Really?
So Scotch Cheap Flights. Yes. So I think the premium is like $50 or $40 or something. It pays for itself 10 times over, maybe even 100 times over because we use that constantly. And then Google Flights, Skyscanner is those are where we get a lot of our travel deals. Like just recently, you will not believe this. And I will forward you the itinerary for you to believe it. We got a flight from Dallas to Tokyo for $89 on United Airlines in March. Hopefully it doesn't get canceled.
Wow. Yeah.
$89 per adult, $75 for the little one.
Nice.
And I'll forward you
is that because
people don't believe me.
Is that because I believe you because I've heard of this before, but I guess I'm not a good travel hacker that way. That's not one of my fortes. But is it because you have to be really flexible and you can be able to just go anywhere, anytime, drop of the hat? Is that one of the main tricks?
I think the flexibility is part of it, but also the airports that you're looking at is part of it too. So if you're in a place where you have a little bit of flexibility between airports, it gives you a lot of freedom. So at the time we lived in Oceanside. We're 2 hours from LA, about 2 hours from LA, hour from San Diego. We have Long Beach Airport right there. You have Orange County Airport right there. You have Ontario Airport. So looking at the airports, even if they aren't international, regional around you, you can find some really good deals.
Nice. So you're going to fly to Dallas and then catch that cheap flight from Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes sense. So sometimes we take flights just to recently said, well, let's just go to Florida because it's cheaper to get to Colombia from Florida than it was from Mexico. We were already in Mexico. Like, oh, well, let's just go to Florida. Let's stop at Disney. Let's have a good time. And then we'll fly to Colombia.
That's really smart. Yeah. For most of our travel experience, like Corinne was saying, we lived overseas, and a lot of it, we could just jump in our car, and like we lived in Germany, we could jump in our car and on a weekend, we could be in the Czech Republic, we could be in Poland, we could be in France. So we didn't really have to go through that finding the cheap flights. And if we wanted to fly somewhere in Europe, at least you have Ryanair and all these cheap airlines. So yeah, we never really had to go through to learn all those really good travel hacks. So this is really good because now we're based in the States and we'll be looking for those flights.
Well, and it also, once you're other places in other countries, it's so easy to get other places. Once you're in Asia, bouncing around Asia is so easy and so cost effective. Yeah, once you're in Europe, to get around Europe, or even Latin America, it's so easy to get other places. But from the US to anywhere, it's just like, oh, such a hassle.
Yeah, I agree. That's where the major cost comes from, for sure. Oh, that's good to know. Maybe we'll look into that service.
He has a free version.
That's a great idea.
So you can check out the free version.
Yeah.
Okay.
Check it out.
We'll do that.
Okay. So
we haven't really been able to go anywhere since the pandemic. So I don't know.
So yeah, you packed your bag and you took off on a flight. I think you said the first stop was in Mexico. Is that right?
It is such a complicated story. So after our son was born, we traveled with Beijing, with Hawaii. We took some domestic travel. We went to Mexico. We just had a blast. And when we finally decided, you know what, this is it. We're going to travel the world. We moved into a hotel for 3 months. So we left our condo. We sold everything, and we lived in a hotel from October-ish to January. And we said, okay, I'm going to resign from my job. We got the money from the house. We've been saving. I sold my car. We're going to do this. I had the itinerary. And then my sister was having some personal issues, and she's in the military and she's in Colorado. So she asked us to come to Colorado. And we're like, okay, cool. We're supposed to be in Mexico right now, but I guess we'll come to Colorado during the winter. Sure. So we left San Diego,
California.
Yeah, we left San Diego, where I've been living in California for nearly 10 years. So I don't do cold anymore. We're from Ohio, but I don't do the cold. But we rented a car, an SUV. We drove from San Diego to Colorado Springs with a 14-month-old baby. So I go to resign from my job. My boss says, oh, well, you can work remotely. Score.
Well, I
can work remotely.
Right. So
I started working remotely right before the pandemic, and we go to Colorado, and kind of things go downhill from there. We go to Colorado and we're having a good time. And, we go to Vegas, celebrate my wife's 30th birthday, and we're exploring Colorado. Then the pandemic hits and all of our travel plans get canceled. We were supposed to go to Costa Rica, Cancun, Shanghai, and we're just looking at each other like, what are we going to do? What's the plan? And as month after month after month, I'm like, what the hell are we going to do? We don't have anywhere to go. We don't have a house.
Don't have a house.
What's the game plan?
Wow.
So we left Colorado and we went back home. We went to Ohio. which was nice. We got to be with family. I have been gone for so long. They got to meet our son. He got to meet his cousins and play. And it was great. Celebrating my grandma's 82nd birthday with family. And it was great to be around people that, we loved. We took a road trip through the Southeast, 2 weeks. We took 7 states in 2 weeks, which was really awesome. We did outdoor activities. We focused on like parks and things like that, which was a blast. And we get back from a road trip and I'm being laid off.
Oh no.
And it's like,
oh, no.
Wow, that sucks. So that takes us to August 2020. And it's just like, wow, okay, so what do we do now? And we sat down and we said, I was going to resign anyway. We have some money saved. We can live off of that. Let's go to Mexico. We're not going to have any health insurance. Let's get travel insurance that includes a health component just in case anything happens. We'll be covered. Mm-hmm. Let's move to Mexico. And we moved to Playa del Carmen, sight unseen. We have never been there. It was warm.
Wow.
It was a beach city. And we were just like, let's go. We could afford it.
And how long did you stay?
Almost a year and a half.
Wow.
We just fell in love.
Really?
We fell in love. The people there were so great to us. And we were so shocked. My Spanish is a lot to be desired. So, but we enrolled our son in school. They adored him. We walked around our neighborhood and people were just giving candy and all types of stuff. It was just, we fell in love with the people in the neighborhood. We did little block parties for the kids. We bought all the kids in the neighborhood Christmas gifts. My wife is she's just such a sweet person. And she really takes in people. So there were certain families, like she would feed them 3 times a week. She would, we built it into our budget to where we take families' food and we took kids' food and healthier alternatives, because we would get up in the morning and go for a walk and kids would be having chips and drinking a Coke. Mm. So we buy fruit and provide fruit to neighborhood kids. And it was just amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Even now, she still talks to his preschool teacher who absolutely adores him. And they really went above and beyond. They made sure to include both of us for Mother's Day. They would ask about our son's ethnicity because he's Black and Korean. So they wanted to know about Black History Month. What can they do to celebrate? What can they do to celebrate his Asian culture? And it was beautiful. It was so hard for us to leave. It was incredible. Hard, and it was affordable. We were spending less than $1,000 a month.
Yeah, I've heard that's a good way to go. Spend the winters in Mexico and save tons of money for travel the rest of the year. I've heard that a lot, actually.
Yeah, it was awesome. We did some trips back to the U.S. when we needed to. We went to Guatemala, but it was so hard to leave. It was so hard to leave.
So you were there. You were there during the pandemic, then.
Yeah, August 2020 until when did we leave? November 2021. We just left last month.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how did they handle the pandemic down there? Were people wearing masks?
Yes.
Or...
The locals were wearing masks. Yeah. Tourists, not really.
Not so much.
No,
so the tourists
really.
were still.
And they started. Oh, yeah. And when we first got there weren't a lot of tourists. But by mid 2021, it picked up a lot. It had picked up a lot. Is that right? Yeah. We would go down Fifth Avenue and we would take our son to go walk because he's a 2-year-old full of energy. So he could run up and down and there would be no one there. And it was great. Like, go run.
Yeah, right.
Get yourself tired. And we could walk back home on the beach. We were a 10-minute walk from the beach and it was great. And then a lot more tourists started to come and it got packed and I think the cases started going up for the local community because so many tourists weren't wearing masks. So you're coming, right. You're kind of spreading it, then you're going home. Yeah.
That's horrible.
Right. Wow. Yeah. So then you moved back to the States. And so what does your future look like, you hope?
We're actually in Colombia now. We haven't been back to the States yet. Well,
what?
we went
You're
back
in
to
the Colombia?
States. Yeah, we're in Medellin right now.
I did not realize that. I'm sorry. Wow.
Oh, no, you're fine. We're in Medellin, and we've been here since December 6th, November 6th. One of those two. Everything's starting to run together. We're at Medellin now. And
take it from me. Yeah. Start writing down where you are, because this is what's happened to Jim and I. We've traveled for so long, 38 years together, all over the world. Wow. And we cannot remember where we've been when. And we try to we try to rebuild it. We cannot do it. I can't tell you how hard it is. It's ridiculous because we've been that many places. We'll drive into some place like in Europe and we'll be like, I think we've been here. Have we been here? And we'll try and remember if we've been there before. It's just amazing. So start writing down at the very least where you are when. So that 20 years from now or whatever, you can say, oh, that's right. I was in Medellin.
Oh, that's
I can't say it right.
Advice.
From what to what? Even if you don't do anything else, it's just so important. Of course, with social media nowadays, it's a little bit easier because everything's date tagged and everything on photos. But for us, I'm telling you, it's we can't even tell you.
The memories are all still there. We really love thinking back on our travel and talking about places we've been. But when we try, like she said, when we try to piece it together, like where all did we go in 2019, 2018, 2017? It's
so hard to remember. Yeah. And at the time you think like, oh, I'll always remember this.
I'll always remember this.
So tell us what you think about Medellin, about Colombia so far.
I really like Medellin. It's pretty easy to get around in terms of Didi, which is like Uber. So Didi and the metro, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. The views here are just amazing. The people are really nice. Very few English speakers, though. Not many people from English-speaking countries come here. So not many English speakers. But we love it. There's so much to do that's kid friendly. And that's what we struggle with when we travel is finding somewhere to go that's kid friendly. And not everything's at a tourist price. Because in Mexico, that's the problem that we had is everything was $100 per person, $150 per person, $85 per person. And that adds up quick.
Wow.
Yes, it does.
So if you're a tourist, you're paying a heck of a lot more than,
Oh, yeah, a whole lot more.
So what kinds of kid-friendly things?
Yeah, for sure.
What you mean with kids?
With kids, but also when you travel, when you're an expat, you don't travel like a tourist because then you run out of money. So when you're an expat,
that's true.
You can't do as many tours. You have to explore places on your own. You don't get as many guides, and you don't get the condensed version. You get to get lost. Or like the other day, we went to Parque RV here in Medellin, and it was an event. We had no idea we had to walk 1.5 miles just to get to the park. So that was an interesting thing to learn. But it all comes with the journey. But just kid-friendly things to do. Museums. They have children's parks here, children's museums. He loves the water museum. He absolutely loves the planetarium. He's about everything space. So we go to the planetarium here. And they have a lot more toddler-friendly things to do. In the U.S., there's not too many things for toddlers. But here, there's in every single mall, and there's a lot of them, there's toddler play areas everywhere. Every single mall has a toddler play area. So he goes, and some days we live across the street from the mall, which is convenient. So some days we go across the street to the mall, and he just goes to play in the little toddler area, ball pits and swings and slides, and it's $1.50 for 20 minutes. You can't beat that.
Wow.
Right.
To go to the Children's Museum for $4.
That's really good.
That's really nice.
It's affordable.
And so you all must be picking up Spanish even better now, right?
Yes, he understands it a whole lot more than we do because in Mexico, his school is all in Spanish. So They learned some English for him, which was really nice, and it was really sweet to be able to communicate with us. But he understands it a whole lot more than we do. It's so funny because he'll be talking something and we're like, what? And he's like, blah, blah, blah. What? Like, oh, that's Spanish. Dude, we don't know what you're saying. He gets a little annoyed. Like, don't get an attitude.
Right.
We're learning.
Don't start now.
We're learning. Yeah. So that's something too that we love. He's picking up the language. So he'll know Spanish, and my wife speaks Korean fluently. So he understands Korean because once you start speaking it, he gets it together real fast. So he understands it.
How did you learn Korean? That's a language most people don't know how to speak. And believe me, I've tried. It's one of the hardest languages. I don't know why I didn't take to it for some reason. And I speak quite a few languages.
People can't tell, but she's half Korean. She grew up with her Korean grandma.
Oh, wow.
So people, you just can't tell because she doesn't look it. But yeah, she grew up with her Korean grandma with the traditions and the food, and her grandma doesn't speak English. So she just happened to be the only one in the family that picked up Korean, and she talks to her grandma all the time. So she speaks it fluently.
Where did she live?
In Ohio.
Where did she live in Korea?
In Ohio.
In Ohio.
Oh, wow. Her grandma was from outside of Seoul. She came to the U.S. When she was young to try to make a better life, and she's been in the U.S. ever since.
That's cool.
And have you guys traveled to Korea yet?
Not yet. So Korea is on our list. We were planning on being there.
I'm sure.
Later? No. It was supposed to be summer of this year, actually. We were supposed to be there. But if our flight to Tokyo doesn't get canceled, fingers crossed, we're going to be there April of next year. And the goal is to be in Korea at least 3 months out of the year, every year for the next few years. So we would love for her and our son to get their Korean citizenship because she's eligible because her paternal grandmother is Korean, has Korean citizen and everything. But because we're married, she can't get it.
Right. Not yet.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so we would have to get divorced for her to get a Korean citizenship.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Well, hopefully that will
change. It's a bummer.
So are you going to be there in Colombia until you take off for that trip?
Tokyo?
No, we need to be out of our Airbnb on Monday, and we do not know where we're going.
Okay, well, I'm glad we got a hold of you now then.
So, yeah, and I was literally just ready to get that. I have my notebook right here trying to figure out where we're going and how we're getting there. So we kind of play things close to the vest these days. We don't plan it out as far anymore because so many countries are constantly changing.
Right.
So I just... it's difficult to plan anything these days, but hopefully it comes together. Well, we don't have a choice. It has to come together. So
right.
That's right. It will come together. That's exactly right. Well, that's really interesting. Have you been other places other than Medellin? I keep saying it wrong. Medellin in Colombia?
Yeah, Medellin.
Or have you...
We've been in Colombia for the most part. We took a trip to Guatape, which is about two hours away from here, where you have El Peñón de Guatape, or La Piedra, which is a huge rock. It's huge. So we went there. It was a lot of fun. And, this really made me realize, wow, this was so worth it. Is we climbed that rock, and me and Caleb, and he's 3, 750 stairs to the top.
Ooh.
On the side of a rock.
That's a lot of stairs.
Going straight up. A whole lot of stairs. And I haven't been in the Army in a long time, so I'm not in that Army shape anymore. So it's so crazy because I'm scared.
And what is the what is the elevation there? I mean, are you...
I'll have to look. I'll look it up right now as I'm telling you. But every time I tried to stop to take a breath, I need to sit down, I'm tired, he kept pulling my arm and he said, "No, mama, no, stop. Keep going. Keep going." He
So
walked every single stair. Every single stair. I did not pick him up. I did not nothing. Every single stair he walked by himself, up and down. Wow. And
That's was pretty
so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And for him to have that, to keep motivating, like, no, we don't stop. We keep going. We keep going. I said, "Caleb, I'm sweating. I need to catch my breath. I need some water." He said, no, stop. No water. Keep going. And that really made me reflect, like, wow, just to see him grow and through traveling and so many things he's experienced. You know, he's been to Great Wall of China. He's been to Chichen Itza. He's been to just some of these amazing experiences that he's had. He climbed this huge rock by himself. And it's just, wow, it just brings me so much joy. Just, wow.
Yeah, it's the best.
Well, and so a lot of people will say that they won't remember when they're older. And probably at 3, he may not remember all of those experiences. But I think that he's getting so much more. You're getting those memories and photos and what have you. And so he can live through that. But on the other hand, I mean, he's learning how to deal with people, navigate new places, being open to so many different cultures.
It's shaping his worldview.
You will not believe this dude. We were in the mall yesterday and he walked by the security guard and said, "Hi, hola," pounded. He gave her a fist bump. And then like, he's just so full of happiness. And, you know, he's just to learn different languages. And with people, what I tell people too, is the bond we've been able to have, because we're always together, you know, even when I'm working, he's right here, he comes and, you know, so the bond we're able to create, he may not remember the things that we did, but he'll remember like that quality bond that we built. He'll know that I was there, because what I struggled with and what part of the motivating factor was, I went back to work 7 weeks after having him. He was born 4 weeks early. I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with him when he was a baby. I would go to work in the morning, you know, get up, get him dressed, drop him off, and then I'd see him 2 hours after work. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart not to be able to spend time with my baby. Like, it was debilitating for me. And to be able now, from the time he was 14 months until him just turning 3, and to be present as he grows, as he's starting to talk, and just to be here, I think is something that's invaluable.
Yeah, totally.
Well, and don't you think that when you're traveling and your family unit is closer just during the travel time anyway, and you guys are full-timers, so I mean, it makes it even that much more so. But I think one thing we always found, because we raised our daughters traveling around the world as well, and yeah, I mean, you have that time to always talk, because there's nothing else to do. You're in the middle of traveling. There's tons of communication, maybe more than enough communication sometimes. And just, you know, and you just have, I do believe that bond is so much stronger the more you travel. I 100% agree with you on that one.
Yeah. And you get to truly know them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get to truly know them, really get to know who they are, and watch them develop and watch them grow, and to be present is so amazing. It's phenomenal to be able to actually be here. And I mean, of course, you have to work, you have to make money somehow, but to be able to do it while also being present, I think is something that's been huge for us. It's been huge.
I think it's amazing that you've been able to do it even all the way through the pandemic. Here we feel like we've been stuck at home, and we never lived in the States. We moved here. We moved to the States in June of 2020. We never really lived in the States before our entire marriage. Yeah, that's how much we've been overseas. And we worked for the U.S. government for the military forces. So we were all over the place. And yeah, it's just been kind of strange for us to be so stuck. But I applaud the fact that you have still been able to go places and do things amongst this horrible pandemic.
Yeah. And we also keep that in mind. So we got vaccinated, but of course he's too young. He's 3. So we keep in mind to make sure that, because for us, something that's really important, because Americans aren't viewed in the best light internationally. When we interact with people, especially when we were in Mexico, people are just like, wow, you guys are so nice. And Black people, they don't see them a lot either. So we really stick out, especially our son. He's Black and Asian, so he really sticks out. People are just like, what? So I think for us, it's important to also make sure that we're doing our part to make sure we're not harming the people in the places that we're going to. So making sure we're still following their protocol, making sure we're washing our hands, making sure we're following the proper steps to make sure that we're also protecting people around us. Because here you can see the lines wrapped around buildings to get vaccinated. And a lot of people, they're still on their first dose. It's taken 3 months from the time you get your first dose to your second dose. So keeping things like that in mind. And I think what something I say all the time is we see people, not places. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. Line. Yeah, a lot of people lose sight of that.
I love that.
So yeah, we try to make sure that we always see people when we go places. And that's important to us.
That's really important that you try to make that connection with people as you travel. I think too often tourists get in that insulated travel mode where they're on a tour and they're shuttled from place to place and they never really get to meet people. But like you said, they're seeing the places. A lot of times they're even checking them off a list, but really traveling should be more about finding out how people live and meeting the people where you go, you know, not being afraid to go into that mud hut and share tea or something like that. Which is, that's like, our philosophy for travel too, is get out and meet the people.
This past, just for Christmas, our nanny, she's Colombian. And we were like, come over for Christmas dinner. And she's just like, well, I've never had soul food. This is what we typically eat. She's like, wow, I've never eaten this. Like, to be able to do that. And she brought Colombian food, and we were able to just share those different cultures and those, like, oh, what do you typically make? Or what do you typically eat? Or what's this? And then we also find a common ground.
Right.
Which is interesting. Yeah. Because I find that we went on a couple tours, and she was even surprised. Like, I've never been here. I never realized. And she would say, like, I never realized, when you guys travel places, we were shocked that there were Black Colombians. We're like, wow, we didn't know this. And she said, well, I never thought of it that way. Because when we go places, we don't see people who look like us.
I'm sure that's very true. I think that food often brings people together. So that's a nice way to do it. We try to at least do cooking lessons or something in each country, because we find that when you're sharing food, you share stories and you share your history, and you share more than just, the recipe. That's just sort of the, sort of the vessel.
And when you're in a kitchen,
you show culture.
You just open up. Yeah, exactly.
You show culture and experiences, and it's great.
It's great. Well, we totally applaud you for being able to get all this done during such a horrible time in the world's timeline, and be able to really show your son, and I think you're looking at even dealing with the pandemic in all these different countries is another cultural difference, because we lived in Japan when the pandemic first hit. We had COVID. We were one of the first people to have COVID. We had COVID before they deemed it COVID. So we had it because we were traveling in Indonesia, and we contracted it somewhere in Asia.
On the plane and the airport.
The way that Japan handled the pandemic, especially at first, was much different than I guess was here in the States and what we've experienced since.
It's vastly different. It's vastly different. Here, everyone wears their mask everywhere. And I think, and that's part of the reason we haven't gone back to the US is a lot of places we've traveled, the expectations of him aren't as high in the US as they are in the US. Because when this all started, he wasn't even 2 yet. So we were trying to get him to learn how to wear the mask, and we were trying, but it's just hard. Try to explain to a 2-year-old, he just don't want to do it. You can't.
Right.
Pandemic, I don't care what you're talking about. I don't want to do it, and I'm not going to do it. So that's part of the reason why we haven't made it back to the US, because it's just been so hard to kind of reinforce that. And he's getting better, but other places, they give younger kids a lot more leeway. So kids under 5 don't have to wear a mask. So as long as he washes his hands, as long as, and here you have to be vaccinated to go inside of certain public spaces.
That's good.
So kids 12 and older.
Vac cards or something?
They check our vaccination cards. Yeah. Yep. And we've gone so many times now they don't even bother, but they check your vaccination card and you have to be vaccinated, and kids 12 and older and adults.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I wish they did that everywhere.
State, it's by county. So if you go to the next county over, you have to show your Vax card to go into a restaurant. But in the county,
the U.S. is just a free for all.
It really is.
You can do
it is a free.
You can do whatever, wherever, whenever. Each state, each county, each city, each mayor, each governor, they all do their own thing. And I work in HR, so they talk about it all the time, and I'm just like, wow, there's so much going on, and we're kind of removed from it. We understand it's happening and it's going on, but the environment here is so drastically different.
Right.
Drastically different.
Well, that's great. That's really great. But now you'd be moving on to someplace else. So you'll have to sort of figure that one out, I guess.
Well, we'll still be in Colombia for at least 2 to 3 weeks. Right now on my list right here is Hacienda Naples, which is Pablo Escobar's old compound. They've turned it into a theme park and water park. So, and safari. So we're going to do that for 4 or 5 days. They got rid of everything that represented Pablo Escobar, and they really worked hard to turn it into a family-friendly place to go. It's like the Colombian Disney. So we're going to do that for a couple of days. We're going to go to Cartagena. We're going to go to Calais. We're going to go to San Andreas. We just need to figure out the logistics of everything, because we got flights, and we got bags, and we got hotels, Airbnbs, and the logistics of it.
And all of this with a 3-year-old.
And all of this with a 3-year-old, yes, whose favorite word right now is no to everything. Literally everything.
That's hilarious.
I found that as you stay in a place for a length of time, that when it comes time to leave, does he become more resistant, or is he still pretty open to going to new places?
Oh, no. Everywhere is home to him. Caleb will make himself at home anywhere. Your house, a stranger's house, an Airbnb, he does not care. He makes himself comfortable everywhere. He adapts so quickly, which is an amazing quality to have as a traveler. He doesn't care.
That's good.
He's happy. He's just such a happy guy, which is perfect.
So do you have any advice for other families that are thinking of traveling with toddlers, especially, to help them get started or to know what to expect? I say, at least for us, it was easier to start young. People think traveling with babies is difficult, and that is by far the easiest time to do it. From like maybe 3 months until about 9 months is so easy. Roll them on your back, give them the breast milk, mash up some peas, and you are good to go. But when you get into those toddler years and they get to talking and they're starting to learn their voice, and it gets a little more difficult. But I think the biggest piece of advice that I always give to anyone saying they want to travel with toddlers is don't stress.
And it's easier said than done because you're worried. What if they have a tantrum? What if this happens? And what if that happens? And you always think of the worst case scenario, and it almost never happens. We've been on nearly 100 flights throughout his lifetime, and he has had 2 bad flights. So I think give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. Kids are going to be kids. You can't negotiate with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or sometimes a 4-year-old. You just can't. You do what you can, do what you can, and don't stress yourself, because that anxiety and that stress, kids can feel that. So go into it hoping for the best, take lots of snacks, take things to do and toys. But that's the thing. Just do it. Don't talk yourself out of it. You have to just do it.
And like you said, get started when they're young. The younger, the better, because then it becomes part of life. And it's a natural thing to jump on a plane and go to a new country or like
sleep in a new hotel.
Our first big road trip as a family was when our daughter was 3 months old, and we tossed a bunch of camping gear into the back of our little car. We were living in Germany at the time, and we just headed south and down to the Italian coast and along the French coast and down into Spain, and just like a nice 8-week road trip through Europe with a 3-month-old infant, and we had a great time.
A great time. We went to Beijing. We had a blast. We threw him on our back, put him in the carrier let me tell you, and I am not exaggerating, the flight there and back, he did not cry one time. Not one time, there or back. Yeah, people didn't even know we had a baby. People didn't even know we had a baby. They're like, what, there's been a baby on here the whole time? But yeah, he's been asleep. He's been just hanging out, chilling. So people are so scared to go because of what might happen. And I think and so many times parents get a bad rap, like, why would you bring a kid? But kids are allowed to exist in spaces.
That's right.
They're allowed to exist. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad.
And even more often than not, having the child with you opens doors that wouldn't open for you.
I think
people are so much more in tune with families and accepting children.
That's right.
Caleb has made me, and I am a severe introvert. Caleb has made me so much more social because he just goes up and starts talking to people. Yeah. And kids are great icebreakers.
That's right.
They're great. They're the perfect icebreakers. Yes. So you start talking to someone, and it's so great. And I think your fear, don't let fear drive that. Don't let fear drive you. Not saying, they're all costing you a win, but, don't let fear drive you. And honestly, you would regret not doing it more than you would regret doing it.
Yeah.
100% agree with you. Well, I think we're gonna close on all these wise words. Is there anything that you want the world to know? We know that your blog is It's a Family Thing. Is there other places that we can find you as well?
We're on Instagram. We just downloaded TikTok. Oh, I'm so behind on the times. I'm so behind on the time. Yeah. So I just told my wife this morning, we're going to learn how to do TikTok. So we're on TikTok. We have YouTube, which is really funny. If you guys want to check out, learn more about us and our relationship, how it is being 2 Black women traveling with, she's biracial, but traveling with our son, where he clearly looks biracial. Some of the stories that we have, people thinking we kidnapped our son in China. They didn't think he was white, like just crazy things that have happened to us. So you can check us out there.
Well, that sounds great. See, we really had a great time talking to you, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy work and living in Colombia day to talk to us.
No, thank you so much. I had a blast.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Streets and Eats. If you liked what you heard, please show us some love, hit the like button, and leave us a review. Maybe even subscribe so you don't miss any future podcasts. Also, we'd love it if you joined us on our Facebook private group, Streets and Eats, where we just have an ongoing conversation about all things travel. Ciao for now.